They told you to wait, to be patient, to trust the process. But nobody told you what waiting would cost. The quiet nights, the excuses that sound reasonable, the days that disappear without permission. Right now something is slipping through your hands. You feel it. You avoid naming it. And if you don't face it today, it decides who you become next. You already know time is limited, but you don't live like it is. You talk about goals like they're optional, like you'll get serious later, like there's a hidden extension nobody told you about. But every day you wake up, time is withdrawing from an account you can't refill. The real danger isn't failing, it's drifting, making decisions that feel harmless today but quietly steal the future you swear you want. This isn't about dreaming bigger. It's about realizing the way you're moving right now might be canceling the life you say you're chasing. You're moving like tomorrow is guaranteed, like next year is promised, like there's always going to be another season to clean it up, fix it, or finally get serious. That mindset feels harmless, but it quietly rewires every decision you make. You wake up slower, you delay harder conversations, you let distractions negotiate your discipline. You don't feel urgency, because urgency only shows up when time feels scarce. And right now, you treat time like it's endless, like you can afford to waste it, like life is a long hallway with infinite doors instead of a narrowing path that's closing behind you every single day. When you believe you have unlimited time, you don't choose intentionally. You drift, you react, you let moods decide your actions instead of purpose. You tell yourself you'll lock in later, when things calm down, when you feel more ready, when motivation magically shows up. But readiness never announces itself. It never knocks. It waits for discipline, and discipline only shows up when you respect time enough to stop playing with it. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they misjudge how fast the clock is moving while they're busy feeling comfortable. Unlimited time makes bad habits feel cheap. Skipping today doesn't hurt because you assume you'll make it up tomorrow. Cutting corners doesn't scare you because you think you'll straighten it out later. But later keeps shrinking. And what feels like patience is often procrastination wearing a calm voice. You don't notice the damage immediately. That's the trap. Time doesn't punish you loudly. It erodes you quietly. One delayed decision, one ignored responsibility, one more night wasted, and suddenly years have passed, and you can't explain where they went. People who respect time move differently. They don't rush, but they don't hesitate. They don't panic, but they don't play. They understand that every season has weight and every choice compounds. When time feels limited, standards rise. Focus sharpens. Excuses get exposed. You stop asking how little you can do and start asking what actually matters. You stop entertaining everything and start protecting what counts. Urgency doesn't make you reckless. It makes you precise. The biggest lie you tell yourself is that you'll feel this way forever. That energy, opportunity, and access will always be available. But bodies change, circumstances shift. Doors close without warning, people disappear, and the things you ignore today become the regrets that wake you up at night later. Time doesn't wait for confidence. It moves whether you're ready or not. And when you finally realize it, the cost isn't emotional, it's structural. You've built a life around delay, and now you're asking it to suddenly produce results. This isn't about fear. It's about awareness. You don't need panic. You need clarity. You need to see time for what it is. A shrinking resource that responds to action, not intention. When you live like the clock matters, your behavior changes without forcing it. You prepare differently. You listen harder. You commit faster. You stop wasting emotional energy on things that don't move you forward. You don't wait for permission. You don't wait for perfect conditions. You move because you understand that standing still is still a decision. And it's one you'll eventually pay for when time stops giving you grace and starts demanding receipts. When you don't set a personal standard, everything else sets one for you. Your environment decides how hard you work. Your mood decides how consistent you are. Other people's expectations decide how far you go. And the dangerous part is you don't even notice it happening. You call it flexibility. You call it being realistic. But really, it's a lack of non-negotiables. Without a standard, your life becomes a negotiation you keep losing. Because comfort always argues louder than discipline. A standard isn't motivation. Motivation changes daily. A standard doesn't care how you feel. It's a line you refuse to cross, even when you're tired, discouraged, or misunderstood. When you don't define that line, everything becomes optional. Showing up becomes conditional. Finishing becomes negotiable. Excellence becomes something you admire in others instead of something you demand from yourself. And slowly, you train yourself to accept less without ever consciously choosing to. People think standards are about being hard on yourself. They're not. They're about being honest. Honest about what you want. Honest about what it costs. Honest about what you're no longer willing to tolerate. Without that honesty, you keep lowering the bar to match your behavior instead of raising your behavior to meet the bar. You start explaining instead of executing. You start justifying instead of adjusting. And the more you do it, the more normal it feels. Look at your day, not your goals. Your day, how you wake up, how you respond to pressure, how you treat commitments when nobody is watching. That's your real standard. Not what you post, not what you promise, what you repeatedly allow. If you allow distraction, distraction becomes your identity. If you allow inconsistency, inconsistency becomes your reputation. Life doesn't reward intention. It responds to patterns. Without a standard, you rely on external pressure to move, deadlines, fear, other people's approval. And when that pressure disappears, so do you. That's why progress feels unstable. One good week followed by 3 bad ones. One burst of effort followed by silence. A standard removes that instability. It gives you a baseline you return to, no matter the circumstance. Not perfect days. Disciplined days. Standards also expose truth. When you say, I want more, but your standard says, I'll do it when I feel like it, those two things can't coexist. One of them has to change. And most people don't change the standard. They change the dream. They shrink it until it fits their habits. They call it maturity. But it's really surrender dressed up as wisdom. When you raise your standard, resistance shows up immediately. Fatigue, doubt, loneliness. That doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you've stopped blending in with your old self. Standards create separation from old habits, old circles, old excuses. And that separation feels uncomfortable because comfort was part of the problem. Growth doesn't ask if you're ready. It asks if you're willing to stop negotiating with the part of you that wants to stay the same. A personal standard simplifies decisions. You don't debate whether to show up. You don't argue with yourself about effort. You already decided. The energy you used to spend convincing yourself gets redirected into execution. That's when momentum becomes predictable instead of accidental. That's when discipline feels less like force and more like identity. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your standards every single time, without exception. Whether you acknowledge it or not, you mistake being busy for being effective. And that confusion is quietly draining your potential. You move all day, yet nothing meaningful gets finished. Tasks get started with energy and abandoned with excuses. Plans are outlined, talked about, imagined, but rarely completed. And because effort feels exhausting, you convince yourself you're making progress, even when the results stay the same. Motion gives you comfort. Completion demands accountability. Unfinished work carries weight. It sits in your mind, pulling at your focus, fragmenting your energy. Every open loop becomes mental clutter. You wake up already tired, not because you worked hard, but because you're carrying too many loose ends. You tell yourself you need more time, more tools, more clarity. But the truth is simpler. You haven't committed to finishing. Starting feels exciting. Finishing feels exposing. When something is done, it can be judged. So you keep things half-built to protect your ego. Execution requires a different kind of courage. It's not loud. It's lonely. It means choosing depth over novelty, repetition over excitement. It means doing the same disciplined actions when nobody is applauding. Effort is emotional. Execution is structural. Effort depends on how you feel. Execution depends on systems you honor, even when motivation disappears. That's why so many people work hard for years and still feel stuck. They never shift from trying to doing. Every time you delay finishing, you reinforce a dangerous pattern. You teach yourself that quitting is acceptable, that almost counts, that potential is more important than proof. Over time, that belief hardens. You stop trusting yourself. You stop believing your own promises. And when opportunities show up, you hesitate, because deep down you know your follow-through is inconsistent. Confidence isn't built by dreaming. It's built by closing loops, Look at what you avoid finishing. That's where your growth is hiding. The uncomfortable call, the final edit, the last repetition, the decision that removes options. Finishing forces clarity. It eliminates excuses. It exposes skill gaps you can't ignore anymore. That's why it feels heavy. But that weight is also what builds strength. Avoiding it keeps you light and weak. People who execute don't do more things. They do fewer things completely. They prioritize outcomes over activity. They understand that progress isn't measured by how full your schedule is, but by how many promises you keep to yourself. They don't romanticize hustle. They respect completion. They know that one finished project creates more momentum than 10 half-started ones. Execution sharpens identity. When you finish what you start, you change how you see yourself. You stop hoping you're capable and start knowing it. That certainty changes how you speak, how you decide, how you handle pressure. You don't need external validation because your actions validate you internally. That's power most people never access because they keep chasing motivation instead of building reliability. If you want to move forward, stop asking how hard you worked and start asking what you completed. Stop collecting ideas and start producing outcomes. Discipline isn't proven at the beginning. It's proven at the end. And until you train yourself to finish, your effort will keep leaking through unfinished edges, draining your energy, your focus, your future, and the version of yourself you keep saying you're becoming but never fully step into. You say you want growth, but the moment pressure shows up, you take it personally. You interpret resistance as a sign you're doing something wrong instead of evidence that you're doing something real. Nobody prepared you for the wait. Nobody told you that adversity isn't an interruption to the process. It is the process. So when discomfort hits, you hesitate, you pull back, you start questioning yourself instead of questioning your preparation. Unprepared people see pressure as punishment. They ask why this is happening to them. They look for exits. They look for relief. Prepared people see pressure as information. It tells them what needs strengthening. Where discipline is thin, where habits are weak, pressure doesn't destroy you. It reveals you. And what it reveals depends on what you've built before the moment arrives. Most people train only when conditions are perfect. They show up when they feel confident. They push when energy is high. But life doesn't apply pressure on your schedule. It applies it randomly. In public, when stakes are high, when eyes are watching. That's why preparation matters more than motivation. You don't rise in hard moments. You default to whatever you've rehearsed in quiet ones. Adversity exposes habits. If your habits are shallow, pressure feels unbearable. If your habits are solid, pressure becomes familiar. Still heavy, but familiar. You've been there before. You've practiced carrying weight. That's the difference between panic and poise. One is emotional, the other is trained. You don't suddenly become strong when life gets hard. You reveal how strong you already are. Avoiding pressure keeps you fragile. Comfort feels safe, but it leaves you untested. And untested confidence collapses quickly. The first setback feels personal. The first failure feels final. So you start protecting yourself instead of pushing yourself. You lower expectations. You reduce exposure. You stay small to avoid being uncomfortable. But that safety costs you resilience. And resilience is the currency of long-term success. Preparation isn't dramatic, it's boring. It's repetition. It's doing difficult things before they're required. It's showing up when there's no immediate reward. It's training your response before the moment demands it. That's why so few people do it. They wait for urgency to force discipline instead of building discipline to handle urgency. When pressure hits prepared people, they slow down, they breathe, they execute what they know. They don't waste energy complaining about the weight. They focus on form, on fundamentals, on what's within control. That calm isn't talent. It's earned. It comes from facing smaller pressures consistently instead of avoiding them. If adversity always feels overwhelming, that's feedback, not condemnation. It means your preparation doesn't match your ambition yet. And that gap is dangerous if you ignore it. Dreams without preparation create anxiety. Goals without systems create stress. You keep asking life for bigger opportunities, but bigger opportunities bring bigger pressure. If you're not ready for the wait, it will feel like attack instead of advancement. Pressure also clarifies priorities. When things get hard, what you truly value shows up. What you trained for shows up. What you neglected shows up. There's no hiding. That's why preparation is an act of respect for your future self. You're not just getting ready to win. You're getting ready to endure, to stay steady when things don't go as planned, to continue when quitting feels justified. You don't need less pressure. You need more preparation. Pressure is coming either way. Life doesn't negotiate that part. The question is whether you'll meet it reactive and emotional, or grounded and capable, because the moment doesn't decide who you are. It only reveals the level of work you were willing to do long before anyone was watching. You keep your goals at a distance because part of you doesn't believe you belong at that level yet. You say you want more, but your thinking still lives in survival mode. You dream in small windows. You plan for safety instead of scale. And every time the opportunity to think bigger appears, your mindset pulls you back to what feels familiar. Not because it's right, but because it's known. Comfort disguises itself as realism, and you call it being practical while it quietly limits everything you reach for. Mindset isn't about positivity, it's about alignment. If your thinking doesn't match the level you want to reach, your actions will always feel forced. You'll hesitate at moments that require boldness. You'll overthink decisions that require conviction. You'll sabotage momentum because deep down you don't see yourself as someone who finishes, leads, or wins consistently. And until that internal image changes, no external success will ever feel stable. Most people wait for results to upgrade their mindset. That's backward. The mindset has to shift first, before the promotion, before the recognition, before the breakthrough. You have to think like the person who can handle what you're asking for. Bigger goals come with bigger responsibility, bigger visibility, bigger pressure. If your mindset is still fragile, success will feel overwhelming instead of empowering. That's why some people reach milestones and immediately self-destruct. Their habits didn't change fast enough to support their growth. Your mindset shows up in how you interpret setbacks. When things go wrong, do you see feedback or failure? Do you see adjustment or judgment? A limited mindset personalizes everything. It makes obstacles feel like proof you're not enough. A developed mindset depersonalizes the struggle. It understands that difficulty is part of expansion, that mistakes are data, that refinement comes from repetition, not perfection. You can't reach a higher level while holding on to lower level thinking. You can't demand elite outcomes while tolerating average discipline. You can't say you want exceptional results and then protect mediocre habits because they feel easier to maintain. Every level requires a different version of you, and the longer you resist that upgrade, the longer your goals stay theoretical. Mindset also controls proximity, how close you allow yourself to get to what you want. Some people stop just short of winning because winning would force a new identity, new expectations, new standards. Staying almost there feels safer. You can still say you're capable without having to prove it, but almost there never changes your life. Almost there never builds confidence. Almost there only feeds regret. To elevate your mindset, you have to expose it. Put yourself in rooms that stretch you. Surround yourself with standards that challenge your excuses. Let discomfort show you where your thinking needs work. Growth doesn't respond to affirmation alone. It responds to friction. The friction reveals where you're still negotiating, still doubting, still playing small. Your goals aren't far because they're unrealistic. They're far because your daily thinking hasn't caught up to them yet. The conversations you allow, the limits you repeat, the stories you tell yourself when nobody's listening, those shape your reach more than talent ever will. When your mindset expands, actions stop feeling heavy. Discipline feels necessary instead of optional. You stop asking if you deserve it and start acting like it's your responsibility to rise. The shift happens when you stop seeing the next level as intimidating and start seeing it as required, not optional, not someday, required by the person you say you want to become. When your mindset accepts that responsibility, distance collapses. The gap between who you are and where you're going starts to close, not because the goal moved closer, but because you finally moved up to meet it. Discipline is the bridge between vision and reality. Most people have ideas, dreams, and plans, but discipline is the engine that moves them forward every single day without fail. It's easy to get motivated for a moment, to feel fired up after a speech, a book, a video, but motivation fades. Discipline doesn't. Discipline is what keeps you showing up when the energy is low, when the excitement has worn off, when life hits you with its unexpected curveballs. Discipline is measured not by how well you perform under comfort, but by how well you respond under strain. When everything aligns perfectly, anyone can perform. But when challenges pile up, when the obstacles stack against you, discipline determines whether you break or you build. It's the refusal to quit when quitting seems justified. It's the habit of doing what you said you'd do, even when it hurts, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's unseen. Discipline also enforces standards. It protects the boundaries you set for yourself. Without it, goals remain intentions. Without it, desires never translate into results. You can't selectively apply discipline. You can't choose to be disciplined only when it's easy or when someone is watching. True discipline is relentless. It is the quiet power that happens behind closed doors, away from applause. It's the work you do when nobody knows, when no one is clapping, when the only audience is yourself and the person you are becoming. Discipline compounds over time. Every small action, every repetition, every commitment honored, builds a momentum that eventually becomes unstoppable. One extra hour of focus, one extra phone call, one extra page read, one extra practice. These small, consistent actions, stacked daily, form the foundation of mastery. The difference between someone who achieves and someone who merely dreams is not talent. It's the daily application of disciplined action over years. You will face moments when discipline conflicts with desire. Desire wants comfort, convenience, instant gratification. Discipline demands patience, persistence, delayed reward. Most people surrender to desire and wonder why they never get results. Champions, on the other hand, understand that desire is temporary, but discipline is permanent. Discipline doesn't negotiate. Discipline doesn't take breaks. Discipline honors the vision. When desire wants to quit. To build discipline, you must create non-negotiables. Standards that are immutable. Regardless of circumstance, wake up at the same time. Exercise even when tired. Study even when uninspired. Execute even when no one is watching. Every non-negotiable becomes a pillar that strengthens your resolve. Each pillar reduces the power of excuses, doubts, and distractions. Each pillar makes success not just possible, but inevitable. The disciplined person wins not because life is easier, but because they are ready when everyone else is caught off guard. They are prepared when opportunity shows up disguised as difficulty. They can withstand pressure, perform under scrutiny, and make decisions under stress because their habits have trained them to operate above panic. Discipline is the armor, the weapon, and the path forward all at once. Your job is simple but not easy. Show up every day, honor your commitments, respect your standards, and keep pushing forward. The results are not immediate, but the compound effect is unstoppable. Every day you exercise discipline, you are moving closer to the person you claim you want to be. Every day you honor your standard, your confidence grows, your mindset strengthens, and your vision becomes inevitable. No excuses, no shortcuts, no tomorrow. Discipline is today, every day, and that's how champions are forged.